boom. According to that, I am live and on time tonight. I felt like, Raz, you came in with the super chat, so I figured I might as well light the bird on time, as it were. So, yeah, you get the boom. There's Steve from Berkeley, first Tokyo Tonight of the year. Well, good to have you in, and yeah, good to be the first of the year today. Hope it's interesting for you. See, we've also got Christopher Luke in there, so good to see you all. Remember, as always, if you are watching, it's nice to see people say hello, so say hello. If you want to grab my attention, ask me a question, ask me for a topic to talk about, just do @MarkKikoZimon. It will flash orange. You'll see there in the comments. And yeah, I will be able to see that, and I'll do my best to respond. If I don't right away, and if I miss it, hassle me. Do it again. I generally get to people. But yeah, just very hastily setting up a couple of minutes ago, so I appreciate if there are people who are still rocking in. Bits and pieces to talk about, nothing earth-shattering. It's been another kind of a quiet week. I've been spending the weekend doing two things. I've been I used to code back in the days. I mean, I used to be an IT consultant, and part of that was I'd write programs for SAP. And you know, yeah, what I liked more than actual like doing entire screens and interfaces and stuff like that, I like the database stuff, which is the actual engine, the actual stuff that you need to do. I used to do some SQL, and yeah, I've been playing around with some codeless. What do they call it? Codeless programming. It's basically it basically allows you to use Excel functions instead of having to write out whole programs. It just gives you all the tools, and you still have to design the logic behind it. So it is like configuring and designing programs, and it's the same as like when I used to do SQL stuff. But yeah, but you have to figure it out bit by bit. If you don't figure it out, it doesn't work. But you don't have to do any of the stuff around the edges. So long story short, it's basically like doing a really tough crossword puzzle. And I've been doing this for work. Actually, I've been doing it all weekend, and actually even over Christmas I was doing it a lot. But it's a lot of fun, actually. My job involves logic and putting logic together, but there's a certain satisfaction that you get, a certain frustration and satisfaction when you press a button and it either works or it doesn't, and that's telling you whether you're being logical or not, or if you're missing something. So you get a lot of satisfaction when you put all of that together, and I've been doing that. The other thing that I've been doing, as I see more people rocking into the comments, is I've been really enjoying Season 5 of The Expanse. I think I've shared this before, and I've been enjoying it so much it made me realize I think I might have skipped one of the early seasons and just gone straight to Season 4 or 3, and they were so far apart as well, and it made me realize watching Season 5 that I kind of needed to know what had happened in the earlier seasons to really fully appreciate what was happening. So I started binge watching The Expanse over again from Season 1. I've just gone up to Season 5 today, in fact just before the show. And yeah, just watching it all at once, I must admit I am fully now immersed in The Expanse. I have not read the books, which a lot of fans seem to have done. But I really do enjoy the show, and I must admit, like watching it, it's probably not mentally healthy to have binge watched in the space of about 4 days. How many episodes? Who knows? Probably something like 50 episodes, I'd guess. But yeah, and I wasn't so into Season 4, but I am enjoying Season 5 enough that I went back and watched everything. And a lot of the things in Season 5 that are referring back to Season 1 and Season 2, it makes sense now. So now I am fully, Expanse immersed. And I must admit, having done that now, I'm hearing like belter language and talk in my own head as I think. Like when I'm programming, yes, I kind of have a thing. Like when I'm sitting here with all my screens and programming, I'm imagining being on a space station. It's awesome. It's such a well put together world building thing. I mean, 4 got a little bit tedious, I will admit, even having just rewatched it and watching it in a really condensed way and understanding a little bit better what the context of it was the second time round. But even so, no, I'm glad we're past it now. But I've been really enjoying that. I'm also really waiting for Better Call Saul to start again. That's what maybe I'll binge watch. I should stop. You know how you always feel crappy and miserable, and like I'm not going to do that again. I have not been watching WandaVision. Everyone's saying that it's good, so I'm tempted to catch up to that once I'm done with this. I must admit, I've been so enjoying season 5 of The Expanse, and when I was done with that, I wanted to watch more, so that's partly why I got into it again, but it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing to binge watch. I may do that with Better Call Saul when it gets closer to the launch of the new season. But yeah, not a lot going on. It's been miserable weather here in Tokyo. It's pretty cold. I mean, not cold enough to really snow. They said it might snow this weekend, but it did not. But yeah, let's rock back to the comments. I just noticed, is that Ryan Cabal? Ryan Cabal, wow, long time, man. Excellent to have you in the comments. And yeah, I still remember grabbing chicken in Seoul together. Excellent to have you there. And yeah, welcome. Great to see you. Andrea Morboy, excellent to see you. As always, we've got Tech Art too. Awesome to see you. Good to have you along. Quint Ranked, great to see you. Like jQuery for SQL. Yeah, SQL. I didn't actually know it was pronounced SQL until like 2 years ago. I used it for years. In Japanese, everyone calls it SQL. It is SQL, but yes. Travis Moore, excellent to see you. King Mango is here, says Razolgo with the mango emoji. I'm sure that means something. We've got guys, English World, good to see you. Kia ora, good to have a Kiwi in the chat. Must be late for you as well, so I do appreciate that. Can't believe I run in 574. Right. So tell me I'm making a mistake, and I must admit, when you've got them really well worn in and they really fit around your foot and they're so comfortable, when I said that I ran in New Balance 574s, some people feigned shock because they really are kind of a fashion shoe now. But I had other people who said, yeah, I run in them too. And they're just super comfortable. I must admit, the new shoes, they're not quite broken in yet, although I haven't really been testing them. The New Balances, I tell you, I used to run in high school. I used to run cross country, and I tried Reeboks, and I hated them. After I got a stress fracture, and they were really like the hard plasticky soles, and I thought that was part of what caused me to get a stress fracture in my foot. Just also from running on road too much. And after I went through a whole bunch of shoes, I just ended up with my dad ran in New Balances, and I just tried my dad's shoes, and I just found those old 5.7. I don't know if they were 5.74s, but they were those types of shoes, and they were so comfortable and great for running. I just thought, oh, crap, this is just what I'm going to use, and they're the only shoes I've used basically since I was about 18. New Balance, I mean, they make great shoes. So you know, and they're not just pretty to wear. They're like Land Rovers. You know, they look good, and a lot of people would never dream of getting them dirty or actually using them as running shoes. But they are running shoes, right? And I quite like them. So yes, you should definitely try that. Sainted Sir, good to see you. Whoa, we just jumped in the comments. I'm going to go back. Sainted Sir, good to see you. Wow, great to see everybody rocking into the comments. Do join in the greetings. It's great to see everybody. Emily Louise Maitland. Wow, that's so awesome to see you, and congrats on the Niños. All of that stuff. Wow, awesome to see you, and a lot I've kind of seen, I think in Facebook or Twitter or somewhere, but your updates. But yeah, awesome to see you. We've got I always worry when it jumps like that I'm going to miss people. We've got Sergeant Bilko. I'll give you another boom since you just arrived, and great to see everybody indeed. Mr. Cordy Chap, that's right, Mr. Cordy Chap. I'm sure we'll come in good time. Mr. CC, that's funny. I recognize that right away. We have our man in Panama, Shubas. Never fear, Shubas is here. It's great. I'm not afraid now that you're here, Shubas. Buenos dias, buenos tardes, buenas noches, wherever you are anywhere in the world. And we have Fogheart. Good that we have Fogheart, because we have a topic that I've picked out that we were talking about in the Tokyo Digital Crew chat that Ty posted, that I posted on Twitter myself, that I think is super cool. So yes, good to have you and everybody. Remember, anybody else joining, don't say butter. Don't say butter. Yeah, everybody. Remember, just as you rock in, say hello. It's nice. It's nice to see who's here and to catch in. We do have a fair number of topics tonight, but I think we'll get through it. Andrew Moboy updating that 3 people out of the 1,200 in the Australian Open hotel quarantine came up positive a few days ago with the UK strain. Now 2 people are positive thanks to them and contact tracing. So those are pretty small numbers. I mean, in the context of things, I do remember when it was like 10 people and everyone's freaking out. Now it's like, 1,200 people. in Tokyo, and everyone's kind of like, man, it's better than a week ago when it was 2000. It's funny how quickly perspectives change. It has been funny. The numbers, the good news in Tokyo is that while the numbers are still crap and they're still above 1,000 a day, today was actually the first day in like 10 days. Sunday is always a low number, but the last 2 Sundays, I believe, we had over 1,000. But today was like 980, and the days before that as well. We kind of got up to 2,000 cases per day in Tokyo, and it's kind of gone around 1,500, so it still is awful and much worse than before, but it's not quite taking off, which seems that the new shutdowns are probably helping. That said, even with that, the number of people going into hospital is increasing and the capacity of the hospitals is decreasing, and it is already basically a medical sort of crisis around this. So it is not a good situation. Mr. Cordy Chep, you made it. Excellent. People were worrying, man. People are going to send out a search party, or women, I suppose. I don't know for sure. But the cases in Tokyo are not good, and it still is more clear than ever. It's a topic for the show tonight, actually. More discussion about the Olympics, and are we really, really, really going to do this? Like, how is that going to happen? But lots of things to talk about. Now we have Mr. Cordy Chep. I feel like I can truly start the show. I guess I threw him off guard by actually being on time. So welcome. And let's get into it. So first thing, I was actually on JJ Walsh's show on Monday on her podcast or video. That is funny. Why is that emoji? I mean, you do test it with the emojis, and I have to stop, and I always feel like I have to say show when you do that. But anyway, I'm just going to leave that. I was on What the Sustainable News Japan with JJ Walsh. As usual, it was actually a good chat. It was, and it is nice, I must admit, to not have the responsibility for running the whole show. She does such a good job, and she makes it very easy, and she's very good. We had a good discussion both about sustainability and so on, but all tied to Japan. And even when I felt like I was about to drift into talking about the Flint water supply for a moment, she pulled it back dramatically onto Japan. We had good chats, a lot of stuff. She was referencing stuff from the show, so it is actually, I think, if you watch this, believe in yourself. Excellent to see you. Shubhas, you are on time, and great to have you. We had a great chat as well with checking out. She has so many good. Talk about something. What I should be probably binge watching is her thing, because she just puts out so much great content. But we had an excellent chat, and if you like this, I highly recommend go and check out the chat that I had with her. And it's on podcast, it's on Spotify, and all of that sort of stuff, not just YouTube. If you want to check it out that way, so yes, indeed. Great to see so many people in the comments, by the way. Nice to see everybody commenting. I'll just before I start on the next topic, let me check I haven't missed anything. So Andrea talking about the news on the Tokyo Olympics is coming up, Andrea. Also, more from Andrea Moboy, a couple of comments here. I got custom orthotics. I don't know what orthotics are. No joke, the only thing that helped your feet. Oh, this is for your the inserts. Yeah, I did that back when I had problems in high school. ASICs, that's the thing. Whatever's comfortable and works for you, and it just seems that for my feet, whatever it is, it's the New Balances work best. They're just the most comfy. Very big tonight. Camera angle. Yeah, I've kind of got the monitor pushed out close. I just right now I've got the camera just fixed on the monitor, and I just swing it around, and this seems to be well lit and sufficiently large, so I thought I'd just go with it for the camera angle. That is all the comments. Thanks again, Raz, for the super chat. You don't have to do it, but I do appreciate it. Boom, somebody talking about buying rolls. I hope not of butter, because that would be trolling. But yeah. So, story from South Korea. So there are mounting now court cases, both about unpaid war labor. In Japan, they call it war labor. Everywhere else in the world, they call it slave labor. But basically, by the way, as I'm looking at my screen, I do realize that last week I had some problem. I actually had to drop out. My Wi-Fi has been spotty for some reason lately. When it's connected, it's fast, but like everybody in my building is using it. So it may happen again. It'll come back, but it did drop out for a couple of minutes last week, and I didn't even notice when it happened, so I apologize for that. It may happen again. Coming back to this. So the Korean courts, now there have been a couple of cases this week, actually. The first, obviously the one that's been going on, that's caused the latest round of drama with South Korea on war labor. And this was, Korea was incorporated into Japan. It was colonized and annexed by Japan during World War II. And for when they mobilized wartime labor for production for World War II, this included Koreans who were often shipped out to factories in Japan and were not paid for that work for the time that they did. And of course, Korea became independent after World War II. Japan considers that the treaty that it signed with South Korea in 1965, that was kept secret from the Korean people, and the payments that were made along with that treaty to settle, which were to settle all outstanding claims from colonialism in World War II, resolved claims with South Korea vis-a-vis the war, i.e. claims like this should be settled by the Korean government with its citizens using the payments that were made by Japan, which the Korean government chose to not disclose to the Korean people and spend on infrastructure, which created the Korean economic miracle but left the comfort women and the war laborers or slave laborers, whatever you'd like to call them, unpaid and uncompensated. And because the Korean government kept it secret from the Korean people, they blamed Japan for it. And of course, whenever anything is going bad politically in South Korea, they start bashing on Japan because it's pretty reliable to get everybody worked up. And that's what lands us in the situation now, when you leave that unresolved for a generation, that you have these court cases now, where even though the government would stop these cases from getting through to judgments in the past, they would basically, now you have a generation of politicians who have come up so believing, and judges so believing, that Japan actually has never done anything about this, that now they are actually finding in favor of plaintiffs on the basis of public policy, on the basis that it would be unconscionable to not fine these Japanese companies and Japanese government for these cases. And the result is now there's a raft of cases coming out of the Korean courts, and politicians don't really have the will anymore to do anything against it. And the result is to Japanese businesses and the Japanese government, well, one, they're saying that this is a breach of international law and trust, that the Korean government's allowing this to happen, and Japanese businesses are asking, can they even operate in South Korea because of this? Now, again, as I've said before, at the end of the day, the laborers should be paid compensation. I mean, and the Japanese government has even agreed on this like multiple times with the comfort women, and it just hasn't gone through. But the fact that the South Korean government, which is kind of the left wing in South Korea, rides on anti-Japanese nationalism. It's kind of weird to have racist nationalism from the left, but this is kind of the balance there. Typically the right wing tends to be more Japan friendly, and the left wing tends to be more hostile. So Moon has kind of been riding, not being able to do any sort of compromise around this. And relations with South Korea are the worst that they have been right now in the whole time. And when I say the worst, they're not hot, bad, like they're not fighting, they're just like they are completely not speaking to each other right now, and it's because of this. So it is significant that the Korean president finally has said something and saying that probably wouldn't be desirable to actually have confiscated Japanese corporate assets be cashed in to pay for these laborers' claims, i.e. they want the Japanese government to come and settle them. And, I guess you could take it as an olive branch. The Japanese government's perspective is that this is a crisis that the Korean government allowed to have occur in the first place in order to draw out, basically something that they weren't entitled to. It's a kind of Yakuza tactic that if you raise the stakes or do something that the others, unconscionable, then acting slightly less unconscionable looks like a compromise, and you have, it's a way to extract a concession. But that said, it's bad for South Korea and it's bad for Japan that they're, especially given the neighborhood, that they're not cooperating. So I kind of think that Moon has like managed these things incredibly badly, and he's kind of just done it for sort of cheap nationalist votes and Japan bashing to be able to exploit, frankly, people who on issues that they could resolve. And he's tanked the relationship with Japan, which really upsets me. I mean, the Japanese government as well. The fact that Japan actually negotiated a settlement on the comfort women for the third time last year, and the first thing that Moon did was toss it out. And now there's been another court case against the Japanese government in South Korea now after these deals. They want the Japanese government to make concessions, and then the Japanese government makes concessions, and they end up not getting through. So it's really frustrating. I hope that this one gets sorted out. Oh, you know what? I think I didn't put it in the topics, but of course the other context of why I want these things to get sorted out is China, I believe yesterday, passed a law authorizing Coast Guard vessels for the first time to carry and fire guns. This is after 6 months ago they made the Coast Guard part of the military. So they're kind of like incrementally building up to the idea where basically without having to send warships to the Senkaku Islands, they're just going to be able to send Coast Guard ships, which are warships. And, you know, one day they're going to point guns at the Japanese Coast Guard vessels, which are civilian vessels, and say that these are ours now. And you can see them building up to it. And short of doing what South Korea has done with Tokto, I mean, frankly, it is Tokto now. It's not Takeshima Island because there's no way Japan's ever going to get it back because it's basically been turned into a military fortress by South Korea. And short of doing that, there's no way to keep these islands from being taken over by China. You know, they're just building up to it slowly, the same way that they've done it in the South China Sea. And for all of these reasons, it's why Japan should be allies with South Korea. And this kind of thing, both governments need to sort out and do right by the victims of World War II and get them the compensation that they deserve, and figure out how to move beyond this without trying to score points off each other. That's what I would like anyway. This was an interesting one. Back in the comments quickly. Thomas H, Kang and Kodos, good to see both of you in the chat. Who else has rocked in since while I was just talking away? Shubas, very nice of you to say. Thank you. No one else in there, but yeah. Anyway, I hate to talk about Korea. I mean, it's kind of a broken record when it comes on, but you know, I want it to get better. I want it to get better, but it is frustrating. So this guy to me is the most interesting politician in Japan. He did 2 or 3 interesting things this week. Well, first of all, he got appointed. He's a bit, you know, he's a bit of a rogue. He's got a Twitter account that he's prolific upon. He has got, you know, when they put him in charge of the Ministry of, in fact, he had a couple of posts where he got moved from really quickly, like he was Minister of Foreign Affairs, when he would be a bit mischievous with both Twitter and photo opportunities and so on under Abe. And then they moved into the Ministry of Defense, where he just unilaterally cancelled a ground-based missile defense, American missile defense system worth billions of dollars. That totally upset everybody, basically the old school defense establishment and the LDP and the U.S. government. But he said, you know, this is just a stupid project and we're not going to do it. So he did that. Now, okay, Taro, come over here. And then they put him in charge of regulatory reform, where he immediately declared war on hankos and faxes. And he's been leaving a trail of destruction through the Japanese bureaucracy, cleaning out these hankos and faxes publicly, and causing a kerfuffle with that. So the Prime Minister now getting criticized for not doing enough of a response, and how sort of ham-fisted Japan's government's response to COVID has been. In an inspired move by Suga, the Prime Minister took this guy who is now rivaling him as now Suga's popularity is tanking, and Kono's popularity as preferred Prime Minister is now going up. So Suga, the Prime Minister, took this maverick, his rival, and said, okay, you're in charge of making sure everybody in Japan gets a vaccine. Which, given what a logistical nightmare and disaster this looks like being, it's kind of a win-win for Suga. Either he screws it up and his main rival for preferred Prime Minister is tanked, or he succeeds and he makes the Prime Minister look good. And Taro's proven that he's a jumping in with both feet first kind of a guy. So he has done that. Amazing to see how, like, immediately, just like the day that he joined, a bunch of health ministry sources anonymously leaked to through Keisha Club channels to Japanese media that, oh yes, we're going to have all the vaccines rolled out by the end of February and completed by May. And straight away, Taro went public and he said, I've only been in this role for a day. I haven't set any schedule yet, and anyone who's publishing anonymous sources without naming their names, it's BS, especially if it comes from these Japanese newspapers. And he's kind of ripped hell out of them. Funny thing coming up with leaks, which we'll have a discussion about in a little bit. But then a few days later, when Japan Times was talking about how Taro Kono, as you can see there, Taro Kono, when he was Minister of Foreign Affairs, he actually also initiated the campaign to make all foreign media use Japanese names in the name order, surname, first name, rather than first name, surname. arguing that, yeah, Western media does this for Korea and China because it's their domestic custom and they respect it and they follow it in English. However, they don't do it for Japan, even though in Japanese the custom is to say family name first and first name, your given name second. The reason for this, by the way, historically, is that the Japanese government decided that they wanted in English for their names to be follow the English language convention of given name, surname. But he sort of said, from now on, we are requesting, all Japanese official government documents will be surname, given name, and we want all media to do the same. So when the Japan Times gave an article saying that Taro Kono is doing this and doing that, he tweeted at them and he said, my name is not Taro Kono, it's Kono Taro. Can you say my name? I thought it was very, I believe it was Ali Foreman, I believe, where he was it Foreman? It might have been Fraser, the guy who said Ali's name is Cassius Clay after he changed his name and said he wouldn't accept his name change. And the whole fight, Ali was marching around telling him to say my name. I kind of thought, I mean, like I said, I shouldn't be entertained by LDP politicians. It'll be the end of me, but I must admit the say my name taunt at the Japan Times I did find kind of entertaining. And it did briefly trigger off again the big debate online. I personally think that you should just have an established fixed rule that when you are in a language, this is what you say: surname, given name, surname. The problem is if you make it vary according to identification, then that draws you into issues of cultural and social identity. So, for example, what do you do for me? I'm a permanent resident of Japan who's lived most of my life in Japan. Am I Simon Hiko? Do you say my name forward or backwards? What if you don't look Japanese? What if you're half? What if you're Nikkei? What if you're Naomi Osaka, for example, born in Japan and a Japanese citizen who represents Japan, but culturally grew up mostly in America, doesn't speak Japanese publicly, at least very often. Do you call her Naomi Osaka, implying that she's an American, or Osaka Naomi, implying that she's Japanese? When she's both. What do you call her if you have a culturally flexible rule at English? But there again, it is true. My argument falls apart in the fact that nobody calls Xi Jinping. No one says Xi Jinping. Everyone says Xi Jinping. Nobody says Kim Jong-il, Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il. No one says the names like in the way that we would say in English. So was it Jong-il Kim? No one says that. So, from that perspective, if we can do it in those other languages and we set that precedent, it's reasonable to do it in English. But it was an interesting point that came up, but also interesting to see what Suga's going to do with the COVID vaccine rollout. By the way, the vaccine is still not approved in Japan yet. They are still trialing and testing it. They're testing the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine. The good news is that they will have many more doses than there are population in Japan. The question is, again, with Japan's very poor logistics and onerous sort of bureaucracy, whether they'll be able to distribute it and how fast they'll be able to do it. But clearly the goal is to get this done before the Olympics, even though what difference does that make if you can have a whole bunch of foreign visitors coming for that? But that's what you get. Tim the Asian Egg, excellent to see you. Good to have you here in the chat. And Atomic Tom, great to see you. Black Tengu. You're in Greece, and I did not know that it was family name first in Greece. Well, there you go. Nice to have someone from Greece. I didn't realize that before. So, and Sadiq Hakan Gurus, good to have you. Wow, I love it. Well, you're in America, right, Sadiq? But we have the Turks and the Greeks. I used to work in a Turkish restaurant, and I've worked in a Greek restaurant actually. I won't even get into that. I love both of the foods. Thomas H, I think I said before, shame really, because the nations could form a really strong counter to CCP. Absolutely. And Taiwan. Remember, Taiwan has like 25 million, South Korea is 35 million, Japan has like 127 million. I mean, the three of them together should actually be cooperating. It's to me, it's a huge lost opportunity. But Kang and Kodos, question: can you call it a vaccine when it doesn't contain the actual virus legally? Well, I think we're getting one, I have no idea, and two, does it have to contain the virus to be called a vaccine? Is there actually a definition about that? I'm sure it's not a legal issue; it's a definitional issue. As I understand, there are different types of vaccines that operate in different ways, but I have no idea. I have no idea. Maybe people can answer in the comments. Thank heavens you didn't raise a vaccine conspiracy theory, like I was briefly terrified you or someone else might do. So I don't know. But they test it, they trial it, they check the effectiveness, and if it's effective and it works, and hell, I'm gonna get it. So there we go. We've got whoa, Maddie, 6 a.m. from Cali, boy. Good to have you. 6 a.m. Man, I've been to California, but I've never been to Southern California. I've been to Northern California, which is different. And I get the feeling from the way that you wrote that comment, Matty, that it is not, that you're not in San Francisco or Northern California. You could be, but I've always wanted to go to Southern California, so I'm imagining that's where you must be. And the J-Vlog is here. Excellent to have. Wow, we have everybody in here. Salutations. Christopher Luke, it's coming. I'm sure it's coming. Maybe a definition of oh yeah, these so-called vaccines are not vaccines according to any medical definition. Thank you for that, Shubis. Well, there we go. I don't know. I mean, if you shoot it and it lowers the risk of getting it, I'll take it. Whatever, even if they call it cough syrup or whatever. So anyway, speaking of tests, you might recall that you would not recall. This was during the week. Last weekend they had the university entrance exams for schools, and it made the news that one test taker who was cautioned 6 times for during the test lowering his face mask to let his nose come over the face mask was disqualified. Everyone said, wow, what an idiot kid. What kind of parents raised a kid that didn't realize that you could get disqualified from your university entrance exam when you just have to wear the mask normally, not like with your ding dong hanging out, having your nose over the edge. It turned out that as the news stories came out over the next half day and day, it turned out, first of all, that this was an adult. In fact, turned out to be a 49-year-old who won't disclose what their job is. And when they were disqualified, they went and barricaded themselves in the toilet and had to be dragged out by police. His mum must be proud. And if it's in Japan, yeah, normally they can be up to like 80 and you can still say, I'll bet their mum is proud. It turned out that he was explaining that the mask was causing his glasses to fog up and he couldn't read, so he needed to get his nose outside of the mask. But he received multiple cautions and he ignored it. And I'm more actually concerned for the kids who are taking the exam and had the test disrupted by having this dick, doing this nearby. But that's a thing that happened anyway. Japan, 127 million people. You do get all types here. Orange County. Man, Maddie, I would love to go and check out Orange County one day. So yes, that would be awesome. And thank you for waking up. I assume you're tuning in to help get back to sleep. But yes, whatever. Whatever I can do to help. This is just interesting that... well, I guess it's interesting on 2 levels, Nippon.com, except for cookies. The Honda N-Box, that car is a top seller in Japan with Toyota Yaris in top pursuit. I mean, it's kind of amazing that these are cars. I don't think the N-Box is even sold outside of Japan. And indeed, look at these. I mean, the Daihatsu Tanto, these are all basically box-shaped microcars with 660cc engines. Basically, I believe that 660cc is too small an engine to be... They're illegal in New Zealand. I don't think you can actually legally have a car with an engine below 900cc in New Zealand just because you have like mountains and stuff like that. So these things can't be exported. They are super cheap. They're actually... It's kind of funny. When I was getting rentals, these box-shaped mini cars are more spacious than the 1.3 litre cars, which I would hit my head on the roof of them and be scrunched over. But these are super spacious. And check it out, it's a lot of small regular cars. Suzuki Spacia, the Daihatsu Tanto, the Toyota Corolla comes in 6. The Honda Fit is more your regular sort of hatchback. And number 9, the Toyota Rumi. Just making a point of it. But 9, the Toyota Alphard. That's interesting because I think that stands out from this list. I'm not sure what the Toyota Raze is, but the Toyota Alphard is like a mega large... It's like what happens if you get a box-shaped little microcar like that and you put like a huge, I believe a 3-litre V6, maybe even a bigger engine than that, and you just make it like a luxury first-class airline seat in the back, like through the whole cabin. It's what VIPs and rich people drive around in. And that is what I would like to get. And frankly, the more I'm starting to see self-driving car technology coming up, as much as the Tesla, ludicrous mode is cool, and I would love to experience that and drive that one day, To me, what self-driving cars are about is, you don't want to be sitting like you are basically in the control panel of a machine. You want to be sitting comfortably and talking to all the people around you, facing each other. Basically, what you want is to get a Toyota Alphard, the sort of basically just a square-shaped van with like the most comfortable, amazing seats and TV screens and everything, and you just want to chop it in half and have it facing, be just a big box and get into it and sleep or watch movies or work or do whatever and just have it take you wherever you want to go. And that's what I want to get. I want to get the self-driving electric version of the Alphard, which I'm hoping is a couple of years away, but we'll see. Toyota's getting a bit slow with that sort of stuff. But just interesting to see the types of cars that sell here. And again, how Galapagosized the Japan car market is. Just, they make great cars, but the cars that they're dominating the world outside Japan are different to the ones inside of Japan. I see some more people rocking with the comments. Good to see. We've got, hang on a sec. Andrew Moboy, good grief, and you thought bad there in Australia with the tests. Indeed. There's always people. And I actually thought with that case that, look, there are people who have phobias and so on, and genuine like breathing problems, and there are people who have problems with this. But there again, if you're preparing for a university entrance test, you think that you would test and prepare in test conditions and check if you could wear a freaking mask if those are the rules. So I'm kind of sympathetic, but I'm kind of not. Lauren Roriano Suriko, I can't read the kanji there. I should look it up. And I'm anyway, I want to read your name correctly, but what is that? I'm sure it's something that makes sense. Tabelog Junyang. Julian. Okay, that's a kind of Chinesey looking kanji, but oh crap, I've just realized over here. Okay, well, Roriano Julian, good to see you. And yes, indeed, masks and glasses suck, but the standard ones have a bendable nose to prevent fogging. So that guy obviously had the wrong glasses on. Thank you for that. And yes, indeed, not that much, yes. Hey, good to have you in the chat and everybody else. And thanks so much to everybody who says hello when you rock in. It's part of the fun of doing this. The kick I get is seeing everybody chatting and getting it. Foghart, give me a car that comes with a drum machine in the dash as standard. Well, this is the point. I mean, we're getting to it, but this is the point. Cars are not going to be things you get into drive anymore. They're going to be things that you will get into to spend time comfortably, so like it'll be like, if you're going to go for a 30-minute drive or an hour-long commute or whatever, the cars will no longer be sold based on performance or engine spec or whatever. They'll be based on how comfortably you can. They'll be basically like selling living rooms with entertainment systems and everything that you want. And they'll be selling the idea of you spending time in that space every day. And honestly, you're probably not going to own the half of these cars. You're just going to order them on your mobile phone and they'll show up at your house and they'll take you where you want to go. Although the idea of being in a car, particularly if you're going to sleep in one or do other things in one, that being in a car that you don't own might be a little bit weird. But yeah, essentially, I think most of the time you're just going to call one up to your house and get in it. But I really think you're going to have music studio cars. Or at least cars which will have computer and entertainment systems that you could totally have band practices, and totally you could do that. People do that already with car stereos. So, I can see this going all sorts of places. You can go and watch movies. You can be in an actual racing simulator inside an actual car. I mean, I think it's going to be, seriously, I think cars are about to become super awesome, and the technology can't come fast enough. Pfizer is going to give Japan 144 million doses of their vaccine, which may or may not be a vaccine, as some people have pointed out. But Julian, yes, I figured out that was Julian after I saw the reading of it, and that's why I had trouble reading it. But yeah, thank you. Sorry to look up your kanji name in the middle of the show, but I wanted to say hello and thank you for joining. Pfizer is delivering 144 million doses. I did joke and say, what if they mix up the pills? I assume that they don't offer the other one in shots. Maybe they do, who knows. I saw it's good to diversify medicines, Pfizer, and I think they've got the one that has to be kept like super cold, and this is another problem. Mass manufacturing the fridges to be able to store them at like minus 80 degrees. And then someone at work was saying, if it's minus 80 degrees, like, is that safe to inject? And I was like, yeah, I think they thaw it out right before they shoot it, they shoot it to you. But I'm pretty sure that injecting liquid nitrogen would not be good for your health. It may cure you of COVID, but probably would cause more problems than it would solve. But anyway, we have the doses coming. The only question is the government capable of actually distributing it? I mean, but that said, I mean, Japan has good logistics companies, Kuroneko, Yamato. The post office is amazing, but, bureaucracy has got to manage it. Kono Taro, can he do it? We'll see. More and more coverage like this from NHK World on immigration issues, and a good story here of people. I find, and this has become a big topic of debate in America. Oh, by the way, before I start on this, let's go back into the comments. I see Andrew Moboya or Doc from Back to the Future. Whatever this is with cars, it can be sort of anything. I want a flying car now, says Shivers. I don't care if they don't fly for a while. This is the point. I think everybody was assuming flying cars, but the point is, if you've got a car that's just awesome to be in, I think people are not going to care so much about getting to places fast anymore. In fact, the idea is that rather than trying to get from A to B as fast as possible, some people might want to do that. You might just want to have like a minimum reasonable time, and maybe you can get there in 30 minutes, but you set it for 45 minutes so you can watch your favorite show, and it will just go slow, or it'll take the long route or whatever. And it'll allow people who are in a hurry or emergency vehicles to go fast. But and if you have that, then it doesn't really matter so much. If you're in a space that's enjoyable being inside the car, then it doesn't need to fly. I mean, the flying thing will be cool for a lot of different parts of the world. But yes, flying cars. They keep doing the flying car thing, but I don't really get it entirely yet. Who knows? It could become a thing. Yes, Mr. Kodichep, you said that out loud. Foghart ties in with what I was saying last week about losing that work time, work from home in your commute. Indeed, you'll be able to work in your self-driving car. I mean, absolutely. I mean, think about it. You could probably perhaps even work better. Perhaps you could actually have a better teleconference system. In fact, for privacy, for the kind. Imagine one thing, the last couple of companies I've worked at, one of the biggest problems of being in the office, apart from the time lost in the day, I lose 2 hours every day from commuting that I now spend working. And I realized that would be a real hard part for me about going back to work, is the fact I'm going to have less hours in the day and more hours spent sitting on trains and traveling, which I'm not doing right now, which again you could make very productive in a car. But the other thing is, when you get to work, it's so hard when you're in an office that has a limited number of meeting rooms, and when you're in a job that requires a lot of calls with people overseas. So you want to go into a space where you're not bothering everybody, but there are not enough spaces because basically if everybody does these calls and they don't want to bother everybody, but all these calls are the only person on the call, you need as many meeting rooms basically, or phone booths, as you have desks. And most offices already don't have enough desks by design as well. So again, if you have a car which offers all of that, it's actually like that could be your portable working space for the day. You could just go and sit in the car. And I guess you wouldn't even have to drive around technically, right? If it was really comfortable, you just go somewhere out of the way. Hell, you could have it arrive next to where you most want to go for lunch or whatever, when you want to eat lunch, or go by the beach and you can go have a break. And the whole rest of the time you're just working normally. I guess the car sickness might be a little bit of a problem, but hell yeah, I'm all about the idea of having spaces being less defined as offices and more as mobile. If you want to have a meeting with somebody and you can't find a meeting room, have both people get in their meeting room cars and arrive at the beach and do your meeting at the beach, and then get back in your cars and get back to work. I mean, why not? Anyway, Adrian Mobile, behave. Odie Jr. made it. No worries. Good to have you in here. Quinn Rankid said, will there be robot armies to clean the cars that you don't own? Well, again, I would assume that there'll be automation for that as well. I'm thinking about how taxi companies work right now. Is often they're basically attached to a petrol station, or I guess what'll be a charging station, and a car wash right now. And they have employees that look after the cars, and they're much easier to look after when you have dedicated people washing all 50 cars or whatever during the day or whatever. I'm sure that's going to be the case with the it'll be like looking after fleet cars, and I guess it'll make more sense the more you can automate the cleaning aspect of it as well. But I think most car companies are operating on the assumption that most cars within 10 years will be probably more people will use cars on a mobility as a service basis rather than as an owned basis. It'll be more affordable, and it will allow them to utilize and get more bang out of the cars that they make available. So Christopher Luke, the Toyota way for 2022. It could happen. I mean, back in the day, that could have happened by mistake, but now it could happen on purpose. Who knows? That is Atomic Tom. There you go. Odie Jr., freaking no worries. Good to have you in the chat, and everybody else rocking in as well. Born illegal. I really just like... Important thing. Most people who are the ancestors of immigrants to in America or Australia or New Zealand or whatever, arrived basically. There were no visas arranged in advance of going to America. Basically, the sort of modern immigration system in most countries was set up like mid-20th century. Most people who immigrated to those countries literally bought a ticket, went there, got off the boat. There was sometimes paperwork on their arrival, and there were countries, again, like New Zealand and Australia, that had laws against people from Asian countries, sometimes people from countries that were designated not sufficiently white, that they were banned from entering and could be imprisoned for doing so. Basically, there were laws against being in the country and not being white unless you were Aboriginal, and even that was kind of tricky for Australia's case. But the idea of having like visas and permission and a passport and everything like that, this didn't exist in the time that most of our ancestors just arrived in our country. So there was no concept really, except for in countries that had exceptionally racist laws that literally outlawed people based on race, which New Zealand had, by the way, and Australia had. Other than that, there was no concept of people being illegal based on immigration status really until the mid-20th century. And it's one thing to say that somebody's immigration status is unclear, but the idea that someone just by birth can be born in a country and from birth be illegal, like to be an illegal person, and all of that carries with that. I mean, the idea that all of a sudden, oh, that's an illegal person, we need to kick out all the illegals. It just becomes a way to sort of dehumanize people and to righteously want to lynch people, and it's so easy to rally people around the idea of getting these illegitimate people, as if people can be born illegitimate. And I just said it out loud. I mean, 100 years ago, there was no concept of being an illegitimate person by immigration status, but there was if your parents weren't married. And as much as that seems ridiculous now, we totally accept the idea of being illegal by immigration status. And this carries the couple of cases where, for example, kids born to parents where one of the parents was from the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has, of course, been in constant war basically for the last 20 years, and the parents got out. They had kids in Japan, but the parents have both been they failed in their refugee applications, which Japan is a less than 1% application. I mean, if you could be from any part of the world which would justify a refugee visa, Democratic Republic of Congo would be one of the ones, like Syria. I mean, it's basically almost a given that they probably have a legitimate reason for wanting to flee. And yet they failed at that. And even though the parents, well, apart from the mother of these kids spending 2 years in immigration detention, so not in jail, just in immigration detention, but not able to see their kids, and then being let out, and now they were let out suddenly for no explanation from immigration detention, but they're not allowed to work. And the father did work, and he was arrested for working without visa status, but without being able to work. They can't feed themselves or live. I think this sort of thing happens in every country. And I understand that, yes, people want control over, who comes in and who goes out of their countries. But at the same time, the idea that's increasingly a problem of just like classifying entire groups of people illegal, and these sorts of consequences that you deny people the ability to work to feed their families, especially when work is available and when they're doing that work, honestly, I actually think that fundamentally the way that we practice immigration is a recent concept, and I don't think we've fully worked it out at all. And I'm not saying have it fully open or whatever. There's still ways that you can control it. But again, the idea that this person's illegal, so they shouldn't be able to to work, or that we should keep their parents away from them. Even though they left a war zone, and if I'm sure if any of you look at your own family trees, you will find multiple people that have probably moved, and you wouldn't have to go back many generations to find somebody in probably any of your family tree, somebody who's had to relocate, sometimes across a border because of strife or conflict somewhere else where they had to move and they had to start all over again. And it's kind of funny. This is the first time where sort of globally there's this framework that sort of allows this to happen, where people can drop through the cracks like this. So yeah, and in Japan in particular, especially given the increasing population of foreign residents, it's nice to see it covered. Foghart, this is what I know you wanted to talk about, so let's let's get to that. Korg is really, I don't even understand how this is going to work, but the idea is that they've released a VR headset software. I've talked about this years ago on here. The idea that right now, I can show you. I've got like four monitors here. More if I get the tablets and stuff out. I like to I like to have everything that I'm working with all around that I can see. I don't like flipping through with the cursor, clicking through screens and stuff like that. And hey, Sleepy 313, great to see you. And I'm frustrated that I only have 4 screens here and not like 8 with doubled on top, or even 16 with them looping all back around me. And come think of it, why do I even need a screen? Like, why shouldn't I just be able to see what I need? Why does it have to be a rectangle? Why can't it just be the shape? Why not have a virtual electric guitar? Why not have a virtual camera studio? Why, we even the software that we make, even the virtual instruments we make, real instruments are constrained by the physical requirements of the machines. Even when you have software on screens and tablets, you still have a rectangle screen that you're trying to cram a whole interface into. And this is a limitation. It's one that we accept and we build around very well. But when you are freed from that and you can just build any interface that can be sort of like anything at all, I love. It was not moaning that I have a squeaky chair. Actually, that's a big one. I bought a new chair. It's coming next week. So next week, right now the trusty old, it's orange, but it's got a jacket over it at the moment. The orange chair that I bought for $70 that I've been using for more than 10 years. Sorry, this is a digression. I've been using this for 10 years. It's a $70 chair, and I've been sitting on this basically every day since the lockdown started. And I'm sitting basically on thinly cushioned solid metal. And my bum is not enjoying it. So I went and I got a Herman Miller embody chair, secondhand. Did not the $2,500 it would normally cost for a new one, but it was about $500 something US. But I used to sit on one of these for work, and it's going to be a lot better, and it will not squeak. This is old and it's squeaky and it's broken, and that is what that is. But anyway, coming back, Tim the Asian Ink, yes, of course I am. So yeah, the point is that, like, and when you think particularly about interface heavy stuff, so video editing or music making, or basically of all of these software makers that are basically trying to cram a lot of functionality, a lot of menus and a lot of settings, and a timeline, and they're trying to cram it all onto a screen and figure out, and you've got to memorize all of these shortcuts and all of these menus to be able to find everything. What if you could just see everything, right? What if you could just intuitively just put all the things, have a pair of virtual scissors to go and chop the video, imagine it as video editing where everything was just visible and you could just reach out and do everything, not have to memorize the keyboard settings. That's what VR, when you get high resolution VR going properly, it's actually, you're not going to need keyboards, you're not going to need a mouse, you're not going to need monitors, and you'll have a completely unrestricted environment. And to me, that's what's exciting. And I think while everyone thinks about VR as being for VR games, And sure, that's a nice place to start with the technology. For me, what's most exciting is complex interfaces. And the most complex interfaces I think that you can get in software are graphic design software, video editing software, and music production stuff. Just basically where you have really deep multi-layered software that you're trying to cram into a screen, and you've got to become a rocket scientist to memorize how to use. Imagine that you just have unlimited space all around, and you can minority report that thing. And so for me, music is right for this. And again, I'm sure it's going to be crappy, the first generation version of it, but Korg has gone and made basically a gadget that's designed to be be used with VR, and will allow you an unlimited number of, well, I guess it won't be unlimited, but a whole bunch of interfaces. And this is what excites me the most about what hopefully is going to come out this year from Apple, maybe next year, where they're going to bring out the AR glasses, which will have basically, they'll look like this, and you'll be able to see the real world, but it will also be able to overlay screens and virtual stuff over your glasses, over your vision. I have no idea how that's going to work, but if they get it working, man, I'm going to want a pair of those and to use it with something like this. So yeah, I'm super excited about this stuff anyway. As you can tell, I rock 299. Good to have you in the chat, as well as Lysander 45. Good night, Andrea Moboy. Good to have you along as always, and good to see more people rocking in still. I saw a few people commenting before, so let's see. Yo, from Santa Cruz. Hey, Santa Cruz, skateboard capital of Southern California. Good to have you there, Sleepy314. Good to have you in the chat. Atomic Tom. Have I tried VR? I've tried VR a long time ago, not recently. Actually, I kind of have tried the Sony headsets. They're still not great, and they're not comfortable to wear. And this is where, for me, I'm not going to come back to it until it's this. And also, I am not so excited about VR. I am very excited about AR. I'm excited about the idea of something where I'll be able to mix what I actually see with virtual interfaces. That was the moaning. Tim the Asian Link, yes, I'm a nerd. That's good. Sergeant Bilko, and why do we even need a human to use all these gadgets to make music? Hey, it just lets you do more fun stuff, and the more you unlock. You can make perfectly good music without interfaces, but as we know, the more you can do, the more interesting things you can do, and the easier you make it, the more. At the moment, again, to differentiate yourself, it's all about how good you are at memorizing and using a lot of the tools that you have, of course, to get your creative result. But it's this idea of getting, your creative idea out, and how long it takes to learn the tools to realize what you're thinking. And this is just another way that you can build interfaces that'll just become more and more intuitive, and eventually you'll be able to just straight out of your brain start making music and stuff like that. So yes, Herman Miller, I got a Herman Miller. It's going to be awesome, because my chair right now sucks. It's actually kind of uncomfortable. I'm sitting on it right now. I'm gonna be Picard, swinging around on the chair. There's the squeak. There it goes. Yeah, that sounds a bit rude, doesn't it? It is my chair, and it's not farting either. So there you go. I'm looking forward to this, and it means you don't have to buy hardware anymore. You won't have to buy monitors. You won't have to get. I love my custom built Ramilo keyboard. This is so beautiful. It's so nice. This is so nice to type on. But you won't even need one of these. Maybe you use it just because it's nice. But again, if you're a kid now, you won't have to learn how to type on a keyboard. Because we'll figure out better interfaces. This is, to me, what's what's good about what's coming. Yes, indeed, I see some chat above about chairs, and yes, indeed, the mesh chair, that's what I'm going for. Kang and Kodos, actually, VR was used years ago through a major conveyor belt system to it, and it's been ages, but the software I saw for the projects was super impressive. Well, yeah, and even with Google Glass, they figured out good AR applications for that. So it is pretty exciting what's coming. But yeah, anyway, bought a monitor, Mr. Cordy Chat. Good for you. Monitors are cool, but I tell you what, I think you're going to need to spend less on this, and they're going to get cheaper because people are not going to need them as much with these things when the technology comes up. That's a politician. She's bribed a whole bunch of people to vote for her. She was sentenced to 1.5 years served, suspended sentence for 5 years, so she has to just not bribe anyone, and she stays out of jail. She will go to jail for 1 year and 5 months if she does anything else illegal, which given that her husband is a minister of justice and he also is awaiting his sentence also for political bribery, Yeah, maybe she won't be able to do that. But contrast with South Korea, where the former president was recently had her sentence reduced from 30 years hard time in prison to 20 years hard time in prison. So clearly they're a bit soft on it in Japan, and this is why you have so many criminal cases right now. The Bernie meme is awesome. I mean, I love that. I saw that. I mean, of all the ones going around, I also think, by the way, he fits perfectly, basically, in any BC Boys cover. Yeah, I found that very enjoyable. There was a court case during the week, Tokyo District Court, not the Supreme Court, but was hearing a case from former Japanese citizens, Japanese people who obtained, one of the ones who gave their name anyway, obtained Swiss citizenship because he wanted to live in Switzerland and wanted to vote and enjoy extra privileges over there. So he obtained Swiss citizenship and was shocked when he discovered that when the Japanese government became aware that he'd become a Swiss citizen, it had revoked his Japanese nationality, and he was not able to travel to Japan or live in Japan without a visa anymore. And him and some other Japanese who were not aware that Japanese nationality law does not recognize multiple citizenships, and if you acquire a foreign citizenship, that you basically lose your entitlement to Japanese citizenship. They brought a case that this was against their human rights under the Japanese Constitution. They lost. It's slightly different. It's kind of a case about the legality of dual citizenship. But of course, you can be born with dual citizenship in Japan, and they basically take a don't ask, don't tell approach. But this is a slightly different scenario where these were adults who should have known the law, who adopted a foreign law knowing that it would be revoked. So they lost those rights. I still think that, yes, it would be great if Japan would recognize dual citizenship. I would take it right away. I mean, I'm a permanent resident, but I just don't want to lose my New Zealand citizenship if I can avoid it. It's, as much as I love living here and I've got the right to do it, it's not quite so good to give up rights in order to obtain. I mean, maybe it will become like that in the future, and I have very little connection anymore with New Zealand. But yeah, bear in mind, at the same time as someone from New Zealand or America or UK might think, well, it's perfectly normal to have multiple citizenships, and this is just Japan being backward and isolationist. There are 52 countries in the world that don't recognize it, and what they share in common generally is that they were not colonies, and colonies recognized multiple citizenship because it made it easy for English people and French people and Spanish people to go and live in new countries and become citizens of those countries without losing their colonial citizenships, i.e. it was a tool for conquering and subjugating people, and that's why so many countries recognize multiple citizenship. Now, of course, nowadays we don't use it for conquering and subjugating indigenous peoples anymore, and it just seems like a nice thing to have. But the idea that Japan is inherently immoral with its position, I think, is wrong. But that said, it is nice, and it is something I wish that Japan would consider changing. We are up on time, and I still have a couple more topics, so I'm just going to race through what's left. Quint Rankin, does anyone realize that they could just grant the PM citizenship in another country and he'd have to leave office? That's happened. There was a case in New Zealand, actually, where there is a law that New Zealand politicians, you can have multiple citizenship, but you can't hold foreign citizenship and be a member of parliament in New Zealand. And there have been cases, I think, where they discovered, and this obviously was a big deal in Australia a few years ago, where they discovered politicians did have overseas multiple citizenships, and this disqualified them from their public office. So yeah, it could happen anywhere. And indeed, Kang and Kodos, Austrian born? I think you mean Australian, I'm not sure. Yeah, it's pretty normal. So with kids, you're allowed to have them till 20. Theoretically, under the law, you're supposed to declare a preference at 20, but there's no formal process to do it, and the government doesn't check. So most people in your daughter's situation or my son's situation will just continue using both passports, and renewing both after that. There's no enforcement mechanism right now, but yeah, if they want to become a civil servant or a politician or whatever, they could get in trouble for it. But that's just how that goes. Quint Ranked, indeed, there are oils and so on that could solve the squeak, but the point is the seat is also uncomfortable, so I don't want to save it. I actually bought new casters for it when the plastic wheels started disintegrating a few weeks ago, but now I feel like it wasn't money well spent because the seat hurts and I just want to get a new seat. Anyway, Japan, it's funny, Japan has very strict anti-marijuana laws, but it doesn't actually have laws against consuming marijuana. I learned for the first time reading this article, apart from the fact that, again, the story of how marijuana became illegal in Japan, there were 25,000 registered marijuana farmers in Japan in 1948 when GHQ made it illegal in Japan. Part of the story is that the GHQ crackdown on marijuana was as part of it was actually illegal in Japan probably before the US from that perspective, and it was as part of a general crackdown on narcotics. However, that said, Japanese planes and Japanese military equipment, I mean, the whole economy in Japan ran on natural fibers, basically. It ran on hemp. And one thing that the Americans were keen on doing was getting Japanese to buy their rayon and nylon and synthetic fibers. So they were keen partly to shut down the hemp industry, of which the emperor was a patron of that industry. And there was a huge whole farmers association of it, but it was outlawed in the context of a narcotics crackdown. However, they hesitated to make illegal the ingestion of marijuana because they were afraid that the farmers who might incidentally ingest some of it or have psychoactive effects of the drug happen on the farmers as they were harvesting it, that it could indirectly catch farmers. So they actually excluded from the law ingestion. They had possession and sale and so on, but not ingestion in the scope of what's illegal. They're looking to add penalties now for ingestion or having it in your system. Also, Japan does not recognize any form of medical marijuana or THC-based products or anything like that, or CBD-based products. So they've got a really hardline law against it, although it was imposed by GHQ, and it was in the light of, I mean, again, hemp in Japan, apart from the fact it's a native plant and it was widely farmed in Japan through the war and after the war until it was made illegal by GHQ. It's actually, hemp is used in the ropes that are made in purifying rituals in Shinto. It's actually, it grows by the highways up in Hokkaido, wild. It's a native plant. So it is kind of, there are a lot of contradictions and paradoxes with this plant, but it is regulated pretty much like cocaine, like crack cocaine. Like, you don't want to have anything to do with it in Japan. You'll get deported. I know people who have been deported. I knew people in New Zealand who were in New Zealand with their Japanese wives because they had been deported simply for crimes associated with that. And not worth it, not worth it. I knew that person through the Japanese wife who worked at my work, by the way. But yeah, they're looking to make where the rest of the world is decriminalizing because they realize there were silly laws in the first place. Japan is doubling down and making it even more illegal because there are registered hemp farmers still in Japan, but there are fewer and fewer of them. So that's a thing. This is some good news. If you arrive in Tokyo at Haneda Airport, right now, Haneda is far and away the best airport to use in Tokyo. It's the shortest trip home and the shortest trip into Tokyo because it's in Tokyo. But, you still have to get on the monorail to Haneda, from Haneda to Hamamatsucho before you can get on normal JR trains. JR is building a train line which will go straight from Haneda Airport to Tokyo Station in 18 minutes. It takes 38 minutes right now, so half the time. That will not be ready until 2029, but when it's ready, that'll make a big difference, so that's cool. I learned something. Sunshine City, huge building in Ikebukuro. Apparently that was built on top of Sugamo Prison, which is where all the Class A war criminals were imprisoned and executed, including Tojo Hideki. But yes, I did not know that, and I just commented today that whenever someone says Sunshine City, there was a special on TV about Sunshine City, I always, for some reason in my head, Guns N' Roses starts playing Paradise City inside my head whenever I hear someone talking about Sunshine City in Ikebukuro. Which is also similar to whenever I go to Dean and DeLuca, the cafe. My name is Luca, so I was like, Dean and DeLuca, I live on the second floor. There was a great upbeat version of that on The Simpsons once, which is the version that goes up in my head. It's the upbeat version of My Name is Luca, which I think was intentionally ironic, but it's a catchy song. That's just a thing. Man, I was going to talk about this, and that we're already over time before I even start. Maybe another week I'll dive into this more, but there was a funny thing that, of course, the whole Keisha Club, the cozy government with reporters thing, means that, government departments strategically and deliberately leak information to the media all the time, especially when they're trying to do someone in. A classic case this week, where just as Kono Taro was made in charge of the vaccines, there was a leak saying that, he's going to have this all done in 2 months, basically trying to make him look bad right away, and he started out condemning it. But it's funny, there was another leak to the Times of UK that the senior people in the Japanese government were looking for a way to cancel the Olympics. And when that leak came out, that was to a non-Keisha Club thing. So you can imagine that what happened was, it wasn't a strategic leak, a planned leak like what normally happens, and also it didn't go out to the normal people that the leaks go out to. It went to foreign press. So the result is there has been this uproar, media uproar as well, who's responsible for this. You know, there's a witch hunt going on for who leaked about the Olympics to a foreign press outlet, and it suddenly has become this huge explosive inferno witch hunt. And yeah, it's because basically it wasn't the normal kind of leak. Which just goes to show again just how the smoke and mirrors of Japanese political news in Japan. Another one, this is lovely. I do like that. It's a classic image. Yeah, a boxer with tattoos. I mean, whoever thought such a thing? A Japanese boxer with tattoos who didn't wear a bandage covering them up when in a fight was given a strict warning. Yeah, Japan is still like that, and right now it's cold. In Tokyo's not so bad, but everywhere else in Japan it sucks, and everyone is using too much electricity, and Japan has power shortages all over the place, and this is why it needs to invest in a lot more electricity infrastructure. And I'm going to leave the show there. That's that. We're up on time. That is all the topics for tonight. We're 10 minutes over, but there was a lot to talk about. It's so great to see everybody here. Odie Jr., speaking of Churchill and America, dual citizenship, there is National Churchill Museum in Fulton, Callaway County, Missouri. Not too far away from you. I did not realize that, but actually now that you mention it, that's right. Did Churchill have like an American mother or something like that? I mean, it's funny. Yeah, I mean, Churchill, of course, was a character in lots of ways, and the American thing was, of course, part of it. Let's go back through the comments before I wrap up. Has anyone else... so, okay, I read through these. 2 passports, indeed. Quint Rankid, squeaky chair. Yes, I caught that one. Barry Convex. Good to see it, Barry Convex. Prime Minister of UK was born in New York. I did not know that, and held UK citizenship lately when he got... held US citizenship when he got rid of it. I did not know that, but... I don't know if he was born in New York. I'd somehow expect you to have tidier hair somehow, but who knows. Quint Rankid, I hate to give up the chair, so I got some foam and sit on that. Yeah, I know that, but yeah, Foghart, it's hard to think that Boris doesn't know the answer to that question, just again, looking at him. JVlog, CBD is here and shops opening all over the place. Maybe CBD is okay, actually, but anything with THC is definitely out. I've drunk hemp beer, by the way, made in Niigata, and it was good. There is stuff here, but the legal status of the fact that they don't allow like medicines based on it, whatever, is still kind of ridiculous. So yeah, they are struggling here. Kang and Kodos, yes, they can. You can do CBD oil online here. You got yours from Donkey. Okay, I'm wrong about CBD. I must have been getting. I think the article was talking about THC. Not to be confused with TLC. So yeah, in fact, Japan Times, if they've still got the whole article available down the bottom, it was definitely not CBD. Now that I think about it, I think you're right. The resin, right. In fact, how harmful is it? They think it's a gateway drug. I mean, alcohol is a gateway drug. But, yes. Anyway, yeah, obviously, sorry, it did not say CBD, so yeah, my apologies on that. Quint Rankid, lots of creative chemists in the US make drugs that are similar to illegal drugs. Anything like that in Japan? Yes, there are synthetic illegal drugs in Japan. I think all of that stuff about the crappy stuff that they spray on herbs and stuff like that, I believe that exists. I believe that there are often people from certain countries in Sentegai who are supplied obviously by gangsters. They sell it, or at least they used to. That used to be a big thing that they covered on TV, and I don't understand why. I mean, again, maybe I've just watched too much of Vice News and I've just been scared off it. But then, well, it's not really my thing in the first place. But why anyone would take like that synthetic stuff is beyond me. Like risks on top of risks and stupidity. But I guess some people want to. That's their thing. But yes, opposite sex is a gateway drug. Hey, yeah, or same. I mean, whatever floats your boat, as they say. We're up on time. We're over time. Wow, 15 minutes over time. A lot to talk about tonight, but love the engagement. Love all the people chatting. Thanks, everybody, for leaving the comments and aiming so many comments at me, and so many great people in the chat tonight. Great to see you all, as always. Yeah, don't catch the Rona. The vaccine is coming, but it's pretty much as bad as it's ever been everywhere, including Japan. So stay safe, take care, have a good week. I will be here at the same time next week. I've got nowhere else to go. I'll be on Twitter if you want to interact with me during the week. And Netflix is a gateway drug. Hell, The Expanse is a gateway drug. I'm feeling like it's taking away my life. I'm going to watch another episode before I go to sleep. All of you will go to sleep or have a good day if it's ahead of you. Have a good, stay cool till after school. Ka kita no peace. Boom. Remember to like if you liked, by the way. It does help, and I do appreciate it. See you later. Like and subscribe. I should say that. It feels a bit cheesy, but yeah. Have a good one. Boom.